Perfect. Hi, welcome everybody. This is the Cabinet meeting on the 23rd of April. So let's do some statements first. There's no fire alarms planned for this evening. Should the alarm sound, please leave via the nearest available emergency exit. Two of the closest exits are through the glass doors behind you and to my left, and through the double doors onto the riverside behind you. Please meet at the Café des Amis. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recording of the meeting using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. I would like to remind everyone present that the meeting is being filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you are seated in the public gallery, it's possible that the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it is recommended that you make a member of the staff aware who can direct you to where to sit. The Westgate Garden gates on the riverside are locked at sunset, so members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass doors over there. Okay. So before we work through the agenda, we receive representations from members of the public. Those can be on any subject as long as the speaker has registered with us in advance and lives and works in the district. Each speaker will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. The whole public representation section will last for approximately 20 minutes if needed. We have one speaker registered to make representations tonight, and there will be no discussion following the speaker's contribution, but the Cabinet members may later refer to the issues raised if it's pertinent in one part of the agenda. So, Graham Harrison, would you like to come forward and have your 3 minutes, please? Thank you very much. We look forward to hearing what you can say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the problems with public speaking, giving notice in advance, something cropped up at Overview Committee that I wasn't aware of it cropping up, so I'm going to make the comments now. With the Park and Ride, the suggestion of using 2 solos that would be available sometime in April, I guess that was once the 649 service had gone back to Regents, there would be a spare solo that associates wouldn't need, and presumably they have a spare one in Ashford. But if they're going to be moved for Park and Ride, I assume they'll then be in Herne Bay Depot. If you need to be in use, then presumably they'll need a third one as a standby. And since I gave notice to speak about that point, something else I thought about, bearing in mind it's Easter week. Many years ago, when there was only Dover Road open on a Sunday, it was about 300 cars needed to break even, mainly for the shops. You've now got all 3 open on a Sunday, but if Easter Sunday, by law, the shops have to be closed, is there any point in running the bus at all on a Sunday, on Easter Sunday? I did mention it to one of the senior officers years ago, and he didn't know the shops were closed on Easter Sunday. Well, they are, and I don't know how many people used it this Sunday, but perhaps on the next contract it might be worthwhile considering not paying stagecoach for whatever it is on the day when I assume you wouldn't get much money in from the car parks. So I think that's just those 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. So that was the final point, was about the buses for the Park and Ride running on Easter Sunday, the number of vehicles used there. And the first point was about obviously being aware that there's only 2 buses and there was no standby bus should one of those fail on the smaller bus size. So there's a couple of points there that I'm sure we've noted. And thank you for your time on that. Really appreciate that. We move on then, yeah. Okay, so we're now on to the agenda proper. So just to note that the Cabinet is part of the Council responsible for the day-to-day decisions. It's chaired by the leader, who is elected by the Council, and that is me, Alan Baldock. The other Cabinet members are as follows. Councillor Sol is Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Finance. Councillor Dixie, Cabinet Member for Property and Performance. Councillor Hazelton, Cabinet Member for Housing. Councillor Dawkins, Cabinet Member for the Environment and Climate Change. Councillor Charlotte Cornell, Cabinet Member for Council Services, Culture and Heritage. Councillor Chris Cornell, Cabinet Member for Economic Development and Inclusion and the Coastal Towns Champion. Councillor Ricketts, a Cabinet Member for Tourism, Transport and the Rural Champion. And Councillor Nolan, Community Engagement, Safety and Enforcement. The Cabinet collectively provides strategic leadership to the Council. So that's us. Agenda 1 is, item 1 now, is to check out for apologies for absence. So if you could go for that, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Charlotte Cornell and Alex Ricketts.
Thank you very much for that. So now we're going to go to point 2, which is declarations of interest by members or officers. So is there any that you've got already, declarations? No?
None in advance, Chair.
Okay. Is there anybody that wants to raise a conflict of interest or anything else at this point of the agenda? Bearing in mind that, of course, if something comes up shortly that you feel you should do, then that's not a problem either, which is with mostly at that point. Okay, the next point is any announcements that Cabinet members may wish to make. I've got Connie. Do you want to go forward? Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I was very privileged to be invited to Panama by the Panamanian government and also the European Union delegate to Panama, because Panama was looking at examples of good practice of cultural trails and pilgrimage trails around the world. And I was representing the European Association of the Via Francigena, just to remind people, that starts in Canterbury. So I had a wonderful opportunity to promote Canterbury. And I have become known as Connie from Canterbury, so I did that. Invited, all the people that I met from the other countries, that if they were coming to London for any conferences, they could hop on the high-speed one and come to Canterbury and enjoy themselves. I also want to say that no public money from this council was spent on my trip there. So any freedom of information requests or whatever, no, it's zero, zilch. I was very honoured to be asked, and I will pay tribute to Bill Hicks, because he was the first person that they asked, and he recommended me, and I'm so pleased you did, Bill, because I had a really very interesting time. But certainly Canterbury is on the map for the other countries that were attending, and I think the 15-minute presentation that I gave to the Minister of Culture and the Minister of Tourism will not be easily forgotten.
Thank you, Connie. Well done for that. I really appreciate that. And there can be no doubt that tourism and the culture of the city is forefront of our recovery and forefront of creating growth that we need to get to move our city forward and our economy forward. So thank you for that. There are no other public speakers actually tonight now, are there?
No.
No, that's really good. So that's item 4. I would have spoke before the item anyway. So what I'd like to do now is just confirm that we're all happy with the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of February and the 17th of March. So if there's any points, that's item 5, isn't it? Both together?
Yeah.
Yep, happy with that. So if we can just confirm, that could be general assent if we're all happy with those 2 sets of minutes. Thank you so much for that. So that's confirmed. References committees, there's no references committees, but I think I'll take just a second that we're going to be looking at items later on. And when we look at our committees and how they feed into this whole democratic process, I think the overview, comments from them was amazing. It's helping there, and other committees as well. We really do appreciate their input. And I'd urge any of the public listening in to check out the attached, obviously, agendas and minutes of the meetings that feed into this process as well. Really important, and we really appreciate our fellow councillors feeding back at those committee meetings. Now our well-walked Panamanian councillor now will take up item 7. So back to earth with a bump, Connie. So item 7 then, I'd like you to take this item supporting Canterbury Pride. It was part of a question to council that we answered here. So I'd like to take that forward now and fill in the background details. You're here tonight as well, Bill, aren't you, to help out and support and obviously comment as well. You're very welcome to. So would you make a comment at all on Bill's report, and then we can take it forward from there, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, this council has always been supportive, and in fact Canterbury as a city has always been supportive and open. I think the fact that we've got 3 universities, we've got Canterbury Christ Church, we've got Kent University and the University of the Creative Arts, has meant that we've always had a mix of people, and that follows that diversity is one of the things that we welcome and we protect. Canterbury Pride Canterbury, get it right, Pride Canterbury, started in 2016 and has been very much part of celebrating diversity. I quite welcome the fact that councillors Carnac and Watkins sort of put forward this motion, because it gives us an opportunity to talk about what we do as an administration and also as a council to help groups. And one of the first things that I will acknowledge is that Pride Canterbury contributes over 1 million to the local economy, and in reality the figure is likely to be higher because that's accommodation for overnight stays and so forth. I did some research into this, and I found out that the rail company puts on extra services when Pride Canterbury is there, and so does Stagecoach extra services. So yes, we know that the population swells and people enjoy it and that. But also the other thing is that we have to make sure that we are aware of our responsibilities. And during the pandemic, the council stepped forward to ensure that there was some kind of celebration of diversity. And this time round, it is a shame that it's not going to be in what it regards as its home, Dane John, but the Levelling Up programme, which was given to the council to do specific things. We can't just say, OK, we're not going to do this and we're not going to do that, because the grant was given on the basis of the bid that was submitted, and therefore we are obliged. We could have handed the money back, but we decided not to. We decided to go forward with the improvements. And therefore, yes, that has impacted on Canterbury Pride. And for this year, it's a much reduced celebration. But the celebration will still be there. And it's something that the council has sought to help and have impact with. I don't know if Bill Hicks wants to mention anything else.
Yeah, do you want to just take a few highlights out of that report that you did for us as well, Bill, and especially about how it's spreading a little bit further across our district as well?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Nolan. I think the response that I've put to the notice is obviously laid out in full within the report itself. I think one of the key things that I would just like to highlight is that the basis of our actions here with regard to the council obviously are based on the Equalities Act 2010, which challenges organisations to know how the protected characteristics really do resonate and work within local communities. Organisations such as ours are expected to use this understanding of the Act to demonstrate what's called due regard to the public sector equality duty and do three important things. One is eliminate unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation and other conduct prohibited to the Act. Secondly, to advance equality of opportunity between people who share a protected characteristic and those who do not, and also to foster good relations between people who share a protected characteristic and those who do not. These are very important tenets that we have to abide by, and I think from my perspective, Canterbury Pride is very much a living example of how that happens in our own community. So we are working very hard with the Pride group this year to ensure that we have a vibrant event that comes to pass in Canterbury in June 2025, and we look forward to its continued success and flourishing.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll all reflect that as well, and I think Pride on, we certainly are looking forward to hopefully then coming back into the Danger on next year, and also of course the opportunity for Pride events in Herne Bay maybe, and elsewhere as well in the district. So we're right behind those as far as we can be. So thank you for that. And does anybody else want to make any comments at all? But we just note the report and our way forward, really. Confident that we are doing what we should do and what we could do. So that's good. So thank you for that. So that's item 7 then. We can note that report and we appreciate that well put together report there, Bill, which I'm sure we can refer to in the future as well. The next one is still with our Connie Nolan, and this is about the events policy, and that's quite an interesting and useful document. So again, this is with you as well, Bill. If you can chip in as and when required, that'd be fantastic. And Alison, yeah. And Alison, I was struggling with the Christian name. Sorry, Alison. Yeah, and you're here actually going to pick up a few technical points on that as well, which we'd like a little bit of explanation with as well. So, okay, just introducing, Connie, if you wouldn't mind, item 8, the events policy that we're going to be endorsing or not, as the case may be, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, so we need to adopt the new events management policy so that the officers can implement the new procedures and terms and conditions. As general background, Canterbury City Council welcomes and supports events within the district, and in fact, it encourages more events in the town. And the council has a long history of supporting successful events in public open space. I must also add, supporting unsuccessful community events as well. I mean, it doesn't have to be successful. It's whether it comes from the community and supporting them. So a long history of supporting events in public open space. And with the recent and continued improvements to the infrastructure in the city, which I've already mentioned, that the Levelling Up bid, and also the seafront in Herne Bay. Do you know, Chair, I'm so old that I can remember when Herne Bay had its first lottery grant to spruce up the Herne Bay front, and I can remember thinking, my goodness, this is looking very swish and whatever. And of course, like most things, it just needs doing again and again, which is the situation with anything by the sea. But yeah, the seafront in Herne Bay is not forgotten, and the council will continue to do so in the future. So the policy, the events policy, sets out aspirations, guiding principles, and to make sure that we work with partners and residents to make it possible and equitable. And that's really important, that everybody who comes to the council and says we want to have this event is treated in the same way. Well, actually, they're not treated in the same way. The smaller events, if they're under a certain amount of people, are actually given concessions. So, you know, they're not treated equally. They're treated in an equitable way, which is slightly different. The officers have worked very hard on a new events management policy, and there has been a whole series of early engagement activities to work out what's been going well and where there might be areas of improvement. And I sort of went through this process with the officers, and I can tell you there were lots and lots of suggestions about how to get rid of red tape and bureaucracy, which the officers, to their great credit, have taken very much on board and said, yes, you're absolutely right. You know, you don't have to put the same thing down 22 times. You can just do it once, kind of thing. And that's very refreshing, because a lot of people say, oh gosh, you know, sort of people who work for the council, you know, they're all interested in making work. Well, actually, the opposite. The council officers have taken on how to streamline things, and they have streamlined things with this new events policy. So the aims of the policy is to balance the interests of residents and businesses and allow the City Council to work with event organisers to deliver the following aims. The first one has to be safety. It always has to be safety. We have to make sure that all events are delivered safely, making sure all national and local legislation is followed, and advice from the Safety Advisory Group is duly considered. When I first became sort of aware of this, I used to wonder what SAG was, but it's just the Safety Advisory Group. The second thing is partnership and collaboration, to acknowledge that successful events require well-balanced partnerships, and that's really, really important. Clear communication of policies and procedures, as well as working collaboratively with residents, stakeholders, visitors and students to encourage a diverse and inclusive range of events throughout the year. And I have to say that one of the things that Canterbury is actually known for is its vibrancy and the fact that we have so many things going on. You know, the people working behind the scenes, the people like, you know, Council Officer Alison Small, Derek Theobald and the others, they're the ones doing the actual foot-slogging work. They're the ones who are always approachable. Michelle Mubarak, not forgetting Bill, of course, the boss there. But it's very much, obviously, there's a team effort to how can we encourage and support organisations that want these events. So I'm always very impressed with that. The other thing we do have to take on board is that these events allow economic growth. And the more visitors we get, the more residents to use our town, open space and economic activity, that makes a positive impact on businesses and organisations. And if I could just say, Chair, we all remember when the Ivy opened up last year. Well, I beetled up there to the opening, not to just sort of take part in the celebration, but to find out why they'd opened in Canterbury. So I found myself standing next to the managing director of the Ivy, and I said to her, what made you come to Canterbury? And she said that she had been with her family on a family visit to Howlett Zoo, actually, and they'd stayed in the abode, and she looked at the high street and said, what a vibrant high street it was. We need to open here. And that is something we shouldn't overlook. Sometimes we get the people, the keyboard warriors saying, blah, 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 I won't repeat the words, about Canterbury. But no, Canterbury is vibrant. And part of the reason it's vibrant is the open approach of the council officers to people. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes they're not successful, but they help people to have events, which is really important. I'm getting to the end, don't worry. And the fourth one is our green credentials, to ensure that our environmental and sustainable practices are in place. So I'm going to hand over to Alison Small to pick up anything I've forgotten about.
Thank you, Connie. Just wanted to mention, as Connie mentioned, there was a lot of early engagement and also public consultation for 3 months. And what's really useful that has come back is around our green processes. So what we've done is actually strengthened some of those going forward, and you'll see those in the report. The other aspect that came up quite a bit in early engagement was around our pricing and our benchmarking with our other local authorities. So we went back and looked at that, and because it's in our corporate plan around encouraging events within the district, part of events has to be cost recovery process. But what we've actually achieved now is for community events under 500 people, there is now no charge for those events. And we've reduced majority of the events going forward. We will still have the concessions process. As long as the events are self-sufficient, we will continue with a concessions, which is £10,000, where community groups can apply for a concession around waste charges, road closures and toilet charges. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's really helpful to have that for small organisations, which would encourage to come forward. Obviously, there is that small pot of money, £10,000 or so, which we can use wisely across the district there. So that's fantastic. So if you're listening in there, please come forward. We want to have as many events as possible, as many places as possible, Whitstable, Herne Bay, in the villages, in our city, and anywhere you like. So come forward. I've got Mel. Yep.
Thank you, Connie, for the report, and Alison as well. So I'm glad that you picked up on the environmental green element of it that came out of the consultation, and so that's great to hear. And just comment on that really. That it's great that we've got that in there now. I guess it's how far we're going to progress that towards our own targets towards 2030. So as our own targets for own estate moves on, we're going to have to make sure this policy moves along with it, if you like. So I'm just wondering how we're going to monitor that and how we're going to move the dial forward, as it were. How we're going to lift those expectations, especially to give people time to adjust, because if we're asking them to have all electric generators or whatever, they need 2 years or so to get that in place. So and also I noticed on page 55, in terms of enforcement, you've got a lot there about enforcement, but nothing that includes compliance with these new environmental sustainable expectations that we have in there. So perhaps that could be added to make sure that people are doing that, and they're not using single-use plastic and all that sort of stuff. And just to pick up on what Connie said about the process, I mean, I've had a number of conversations with some traders and event organisers as well, and that was often one of the main issues, is that they wanted to do so much great stuff for the district, but they were always coming across like having to fill the form in again. So I'm really pleased that's been addressed. So that's excellent. Thank you.
Brilliant, Mel. Thank you for that. Obviously, it just struck me as well, actually, the work that we're doing at the Dane John, of course, includes some power supplies, doesn't it, that we can use mains power supplies now rather than generators for some of the smaller events. So we'd be working that in from the process forward. So that's good news. So next summer, hopefully, most of the events can be using those supplies, can't they? Was anything you wanted to add, Alison, for that?
No, just to mention, obviously the smaller events will still complete the paperwork, but it will be a lot simplified. And once the policy is adopted, we're going to work on some of those forms from what came back from the early engagement.
Yeah, that's really encouraging. Of course, and if you're listening in, don't feel shy. If you want a bit of help, it's there for having, isn't it? So don't feel that has to be a problem. Bill, does anything you wanted to round up on at all? No, that's fine. I think we need to resolve this, don't we?
Yeah, we need a formal proposal. it's been said.
Yeah, so I'm happy to propose that we accept the vendor policy. Can I have somebody to second? Thank you, Connie. And it is a formal vote, which you'll key up now, Anastasia.
And that's been carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you for that, and that's we proudly go forward. Now the work starts, unfortunately, Alison. So that's really good. Well, we're done for that. Thank you. Great stuff. Complete diametric change of direction now. This is coming to Councillor Dixie. So this is item 9, which we're going to be looking at approving the disposal or of the lease on a property in London Road. We need to make some decisions tonight about that, and I'm sure the officers will fill in details, and Michael will help us through that process on why we're doing and what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. And this property, as the report states, has been empty for about 15 months and is surplus to our needs. If we were to relet it, officers could do this under delegated powers. But Mike has calculated that it might be more advantageous financially to sell the freehold. And however, officers don't have delegated powers to sell the freehold. So this is why this report's come to Cabinet. So we're therefore seeking to authorise officers to market the property for either disposal or for reletting, whichever is the most favourable financially. And indications are that it's likely to be the sale rather than reletting, but time will tell. And just a reminder that 25% of this council's income, about 25%, comes from property rentals, huge amount. And a large chunk of our capital receipts come from property sales. Anything you'd like to add to that, Mike or Bill? I think it's all fairly straightforward. Bill?
Thank you, Councillor. If I may, I think the only thing I would say is, whilst it is an officer delegation, that decision process will obviously include working with the portfolio holder as well as the Section 151 officer and the Cabinet member for finance. So it is a fully robust process that we're suggesting here to make sure that the best options put on the table for the council and for the district.
Yeah. And that's covered, of course, in the resolution we've got in front of us.
Indeed.
Shall I just read out the resolution, Michael? Or do you
Shall I
want to
read
do
it
that?
out? Okay.
Yes,
To
please.
resolve that the head of property and regeneration be authorised to take the decision to either dispose of the freehold of the property or to let the property on a commercial lease terms in consultation with the cabinet member. That in this case, that would be me. For finance, that's Mike, and the council's S151, Section 151 officer. And in the event that this is if we decide to sell, to authorise the head of legal services to enter into any legal documentation to complete the sale of the freehold.
Can I just get a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. So, Councillor Mike's up. Any other comments at all? Anyone? No? Okay. In that case, we do need to resolve this one too, don't we? So, it's been proposed and seconded, and the vote now for is to allow those ability for officers and to release or to sell that property in London Road.
And that's carried unanimously, Chair.
First of all, this is item 10 on our agenda, and we're very happy to have our representatives from Chesfield Parish Council with us tonight as well. Thank you for that, coming tonight. Really appreciate that as well. This is to consider a report by Peter Davis, the Joint Chief Executive. I'm nice to make some comments in a moment or two. But in essence, this is really about facilitating Chesfield Parish Council to go forward and create their village plan, or their, if you like, their mini local plan for their district. And it's all about redrawing the boundary of what would be their council or their parish council to include another piece of land. So broadly, I'm going to propose or to propose that now. But I also feel this is a pragmatic and sensible piece of work they're doing and a proposal forward. And I think the report will report that, and I'll ask Peter to do that. But I want to just make absolutely clear before we go any further that that this designation does not change anything in the current plans, if you like, for or the local plans for, or planning policy, or the allocation as it may or may not go to Reg 19 of that piece of land that's been taken. So doesn't change absolutely anything to do with our policy or our local plan going forward at this moment in time. This piece of what we're voting on, this is really just allowing Chesterfield Parish Council to set their plans in over a different area that includes this piece of land adjacent to their own parish from a non-parished area. So I will just read the resolution and then I'll hand over to Peter. So to resolve to approve the designation of Chesterfield Parish Council neighbourhood area as set out in Appendix A in line with the Neighbourhood Planning General Regulations 2012 as amended. So would somebody like to second that, and then we're open for debate? Thank you, Councillor Hazelton, that's appreciated. Okay, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it relatively short and sweet for you. Basically, the report sets out the main item, which is really a letter from Chesterfield Parish Council, which sets out that they had undertaken consultation and engagement following permission to consult that was given earlier in the year by the council on extending the area beyond the boundary of the parish council to include the area that could or could not include the Brooklands Farm development, regardless of whether it is included in the forthcoming Regulation 19 draft plan or not. Consultation came back. The statutory stakeholders that responded had no issues with it. The council has no issues with it. And again, as Alan has said, that this council is very supportive of neighbourhood plans and encourages them wherever they come forward. So the report basically sets out that following that, it falls to the council to consider and hopefully ultimately grant the extension so that Chesterfield can continue with the development of its neighbourhood plan.
Mike, yeah.
I just really wanted to speak in support of this. I mean, neighbourhood plans are so important and will become even more important as we move to unitary authorities. And if the local population through the parish council wish to do this, we should be supporting it and giving them, our backing on this. I do have a question. Though I understand I know this is just about the neighbourhood plan, but will there in the future be a move to actually put that land within the parish as well? I know that's not part of this agreement, but have there been any discussions about that, or that's just not on the agenda or timetable for it at the moment? No.
Thank you, Chair. It's a completely different point. So this is purely around the area that a neighbourhood plan can cover because it's a non-parished area. A neighbouring parish can include it for the purposes of neighbourhood planning. It's got nothing to do with the boundaries or future potential boundaries of any parishes.
Yeah, I fully understand that. I just thought it might be something that might be worth the parish considering in the future, and they're nodding their heads, so that's good. Yeah, very supportive. Thank you.
It's a really good point, actually, Mike, and deliberately steered away from by me. But no, joking aside, I think, of course, it opens up a whole issue with the non-parished areas of our district that, you know, will have to be dealt with one way or the other in the coming generations, no doubt, under a unitary authority, which encourages the community council idea at its heart as well. So you're absolutely right. But at this moment in time, I guess it would be not right that we comment on that. But we can certainly, if we're happy, we need to resolve this, don't we? So we need to have a vote on this. So I think you've heard what resolved, and it's seconded by Councillor Mike Sole. So a vote for is to allow the Chesterfield Parish Council to have that revised area for their local plan or their parish plan.
And that's carried unanimously, Chair.
That's great. Thank you for that. Okay. I think. Yeah, that's it. As long as my eyesight is better than we want. Yeah. Good. Okay. Right. I've rummaged my pencil and paper about a bit now, and we've now got the right bit in front of me. This is item 11, and it's again with me, but you will be pleased to know this is the last substantive item on our agenda tonight. So breathe a sigh. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Actually, I did actually, but actually, I was looking forward to the park and ride bit, but this would be my bit here. Absolutely, quite right. Sorry about that. Okay. This is to do with local government reorganisation again, and is funding a strategic partner. Many of you, well, all of you on Cabinet will know the debate and discussions that we've already had about this. In essence, we much of our debates over the last few weeks have been about local government reorganisation and what have you. And you will recall that we do need undoubtedly to get on a strategic partner, a consultancy, in other words, to work with all the councils in Kent. That's all 14. That's 12 district councils plus Kent and Medway Unitary Authority, Kent Authority and Medway Unitary Authority. To number crunch, to work through the pros and the cons, to get through some evidence and solutions and ideas about how we might make a sustainable or substantially sound and sustainable unitary authorities in the future, whatever size and shape they may end up being. So this is all about that. But the bit about why we need to do that, I think will become fairly apparent if I just read out the two things that we need to resolve, and then I'll come back just for another couple of comments if I can afterwards. So what we're going to hopefully resolve tonight, but it's obviously entirely with your vote, is that delegated authority is given to the Joint Chief Executives in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Finance and the Section 151 officer, of course, is a finance officer for the council, to use the council's reserve to fund Canterbury City Council's proportion of the cost of the strategic partner in order to deliver a full local government reorganisation proposal by 28th of November 2025. And the second point now is that the leader of the council, in consultation with the Joint Chief Executives, is given delegated authority to work jointly with other Kent and Medway principal authorities to procure a strategic partner in order to develop the final proposal for local government reorganisation in Kent and Medway. So it's fair to say that this afternoon we had a Kent leaders meeting where this particular item was front and centre of those debates. And in that debate, we if you like, the draft specification was discussed and pulled together, and it has been written by chief executives across the county from all of the councils, along with some of the leaders, not me, but some of the other leaders had input into it, and we've all had a chance to comment about it. And it sets together the draft sort of specification for it, so that we can actually get the information to disaggregate what KCC does and put it into the building blocks of what will be the new unitary authorities, whatever shape and form they may be. And also we talked about what happens with the stages that follow, first of all, the fact finding, the geographies, and then how we move towards the unitary authority and the processes and practices and everything that goes with it over the next sort of couple of years, really. So working backwards, by delegating or allowing me to make those decisions at leaders' meetings, following the evidence that's with me and shared with all of you, both formally at cabinet meetings going forward into the future, and obviously at other times as well when we share the information that I have. I will commit to always be as open as I possibly can, as honest with everyone as I can. But I do feel that this is such a moving target. There is no time and no a little benefit actually, because I'm only one of 14, one of 13 sort of councils, if you like, one of the district councils. I'm a tiny cog in a tiny wheel, so my decision is important, and people were listening to what you say, but in essence, it is a majority decision too. So we're all in this together. We're very lucky that all of the councils have decided to work together on a joint specification, so that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. All the evidence is going to be mastered the same, and that is really important. And so therefore, the bill will come in, and we will pay our proportion there of it. So Kent will pay the lion's share of it, being the biggest authority. Then Medway and the others, district councils, will broadly speaking share what's left over between them. And you will recall in the budget, we set about £500,000 out of reserves that we can use if we need to. The government is contributing towards this, but only in a relatively small amount of money, around about £300,000 to £400,000 over the whole of the county. So it's probably nowhere near enough, but so we're all going to have to contribute towards that as well. So, that I think summarises where we are. It's a leap of faith that hopefully you can trust us to go forward with that. We're in the driving seat, and today at that leaders meeting we got the draft out, and it come forward, and it was pretty good, I think. I was comfortable with it. As soon as it's approved or ready for approval, I will share with all of you as well in confidence. And then we're going to go out to tender, and consultancy will be selected in the approved manner that goes with all councils, which is a pretty strict process, rightly so. So that's what we will do, and then move forward. It's not long, it's going to take a good few weeks to get that underway, and we've only got till November next year to get this in some sort of draft form. So on the 20th of November. So I've got full confidence in the chief execs. I've got full confidence in their decision-making process when there's a team of chief execs. I think we have good representation from council leaders across all political parties in a politically balanced look from their point of view, which I think is the right thing to do as well. But it's not. But obviously, most of it is going to be based on evidence. Well, all of it be based on evidence and the sanity of what we're doing. So we hope to have that contract in place, I think, by probably June, end of June. So really tight timetable, and then we come back on it. So I'd like to have a seconder for that. Thank you, Mike, for that. Appreciate that. And comments, of course, welcome. And if not, we're vote for it in a moment or two. So I'm going to go around. It's Mike, Mel, Pip, Chris, Michael. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I think it's so important that we have a strategic partner with this. You know, from what I hear so far, all the councils in Kent are working well on this compared to many other counties going through similar procedures, you know, and that's really good to hear. But we do need to make sure that decisions based on the future of Kent are based on facts and evidence, and not on preconceptions or for political gain or whatever. And by getting that information there, I think we stand the best chance of that happening. The 28th of November isn't far away, and what happens in the months up to then will shape what Kent looks like for 50 or more years, and it's so important to get that right. So I'm very pleased that we are doing it this way. Yes, it's going to cost us money, but I think that money will be well spent. And on the second point of the resolution, to give you the delegated authority on this, I have 100% faith in you on this, Alan, because I know that so far you've been very open, very pragmatic in the way that you've approached this. And working with the Joint Chief Execs, I know that you will do the best you can for Canterbury and the residents. So I have to say you have my full backing on that.
Thank you, Mike. Over to you, Mel.
Yeah, thank you. Alan, just a couple of questions maybe. I'm guessing that the cap on this spending, if we have to go over, is $500,000, so you're not going to go any further than that. There's nothing specific that says there is a cap. You just said you're going to say that that's amount of money available. And so it is taxpayers' money. So I'm just hoping that there's going to be transparency. Well, I would expect there to be transparency about how that money is spent, should we need to spend it.
I'll just answer that straight away. Yeah, I mean, we estimate that we set that money aside. It's an estimate. We hope it's probably about right, but we may, to be truthful, we may have to come back for more. We don't know at this moment in time, and hopefully we won't spend as much. But it's just, we have to be straightforward with each other. We're in this now for the long run, but we think that's about right, and probably less. Is that about right?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's a part just towards the end of the report that says that for transparency purposes, because we're not asking for an open checkbook, we would come back if it was sort of an outrageous amount, but it does say that regardless, because it's given a delegation to the officers to ultimately implement the contract that will be signed with Alan, we'll do an officer decision notice, which is a report that we have to write setting out the rationale as to why we've gone down a certain route, the money that's been allocated, and the consultants, the strategic part that's been procured. So we still go through a formal process. It's just something that'll be published straight on the website as opposed to sort of going back through cabinet for resolution. And Alan, as he's said he would do, will update at full council or cabinet, whichever is the next closest meeting to the one after we get that contractor in place. So yes, it does sound a bit like it's giving Alan crazy delegations to be able to do what he wants, but it wouldn't be, and that's why also we've got the Section 151 delegation consultation in there as well, and Mike, both of whom together are a very solid brick wall of around the finances, and will ensure that we don't go silly in what we're doing. It's partly because we don't know what it's going to be, and also if we put an amount in a report, then everybody works out, what that means, and then multiply it up by 14, and that'll be what a consultant will come back asking for. So it's purposely done as a way that we can protect it through procurement, and there's obviously the amount of money that government is giving towards this, but as we put in the report, that's only £376,000 potentially if you divide the whole amount into each of the regions. And for Canterbury's proportion of that is about £26,000, which sounds like a lot of money to everybody, But when you're working on something like this, £26,000 probably doesn't get you very much. It probably get you the first 5 minutes of a time with a top tier consultancy like that. So we will be very careful with the money, and we will report back on exactly how much has been allocated through a formal officer decision notice.
Thanks, Peter. That's wise words and well summed up. Yeah. It's Pip and then Chris and then Mark to finish.
Yes, thank you, Alan. So first of all, I'm very happy with this, and I just want to echo what you said, Mike, about having about the second part of it, about delegating you with the negotiation to get the strategic partner right, because you have been as transparent as possible all the way through, and have you've looked to share as much information as is available, and to involve public, or members of officers, staff, members of the public, local organisation partners, councillors from all the parties. So I just want to kind of put that on public record. I've got kind of one question. Well, it's two questions. One is a simple one. Have any of the other 14 councils so resolved yet? Where in the sort of process are we? Because it's quite a tight time scale, it would just be interesting to know, and have any balked at it yet? And I suppose I would be interested to know what would happen if any did. And then my only slight niggle is, if it's an equal 14-way split, well done KCC for negotiating that bit of the deal, and second well done to Medway. But I can see heads are shaking, and is that if they put in more money, they might think they had more say, but that's not kind of how, I don't know, the law on marriage or unions works, is it? Thank you.
I could say it that way. On the final bit, Pip, no, it's not. KCC will take a line share because, Medway and about twice as big, I suppose, as your average district council. So they'll be taking that proportion, and obviously, so it'll be proportioned out a little bit fairer. Whether we think it's fair or not, we can always argue the toss, can't we? But it's going to be much, much fairer than that. Sorry. Yeah, go on then.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the first part, it's interesting. In theory, we might not have, we don't know how much it is, and that's part of the issue. In theory, we wouldn't have needed to bring a report through. Susie and I already have delegations that we can via money between different codes up to, I think it's about £250,000, which is a sizable amount of money. So thank you for those delegations that you probably didn't know about, but they exist. And we can do that within the budget. We've got a large annual budget, and we can move relatively small amounts of money around to pay for this. But talking it through, we felt as Canterbury, and based on what you resolved through Cabinet following Council, that you wanted to, as best as possible, as much as possible, take decisions through so that you had the opportunity to understand what was going on, and at least have an informed decision and informed delegations through to officers or councillors. So as far as I know, I don't think any other councils are particularly at this stage taking reports through to ask for delegations, because most councils have probably got a delegation that they would lean on at the time where they want to do it. However, we've chosen to do it this way because we had the opportunity, and because it fit with the feel of how you previously described how you want to do stuff. So it's an additional delegation. We could have lent on existing ones probably, but also if it was slightly over that, it would be a real nightmare to have to come back at the 11th hour and then force you into a last minute decision. So it's probably been done the Canterbury way rather than the sort of the majority way.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that openness again, doesn't it? We open all the way along. We're not hiding and worrying about, and then people criticising what we did 6 months ago and stuff like that. So we're doing that. But yeah, I think and has anybody balked at it? Well, today actually it was relatively straightforward. There was one council that that wasn't entirely happy, but obviously realised that they're in the minority, and they just said, okay, we'll accept it. So, and that's fine, and we will have to do that on occasions, I'm sure. But at the moment, yeah, I mean, pretty much people are behind it, and they realise the importance of it, and we're getting behind it. So I don't think we're going to get too many problems along the way, unless the bills start getting out of hand, which I don't see that either in particular reason it shouldn't do. Okay, Chris, and then Michael.
Peter's answered my question.
Okay, over to you then, Michael, please.
Thank you. First of all, I fully support this resolution, but I have a big concern, and it is a big concern, and that's that many other councils will be seeking a strategic partner or consultant to help them. The pool of experienced consultants is very limited. And this is an area I do have some experience in. And I think it's essential that we get in as early as we possibly can to get the pick of the best of the bunch, because there'll be a lot of second-rate consultants working in this area in the next 2 or 3 years. And we don't want second-rate consultants. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the reason why we're doing stuff at ultra high speed. You know, we really do. And Michael was absolutely right. You know, we need to get the best that we possibly can. And this is trying to do high speed decision making, really. So there's a good spec, which I'll share with all of you on Cabinet in confidence at this moment in time, but later it'll be public. And from that point onwards, yeah, I mean, we think we can get a consultant on board by the end of June, which is going to be really quick. So that should be useful to do that. Hopefully we will. No, I don't think there's any intention. There's going to be a real strict process, which I'm quite encouraged by as well, actually. There'll be some, completely independent sort of selection through officers and what have you. So really, really good piece of work there. The best we can. It's not perfect, but it's going to be a lot better than it could be. Any other points at all? Okay, so we do need to resolve this. So to vote for is to resolve this resolve those 2 items read out earlier. Okay.
And that's carried unanimously, Chair.
Right, now this is the main event. This is the Surrey Road Park and Ride. So this is our agenda item 12. Now, I think I'm right in saying that Mike has been nominated by Alex to speak on this. Is that right? That's really good. So without further ado, Mike, if you can just introduce the item, sum up as go along as we can, and then if you wouldn't mind making the resolution too, we'll get a seconder for that at that point before we open and come back to debate.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, tonight I have the pleasure of being Alex Ricketts. First of all, you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting the role of the Overview Committee, and I think this is one item they really did dive into, and we've certainly looked at the comments that they made and have made sure that we are happy with the resolution, but it was certainly a very interesting debate they had and gave us lots to think about. Park and Ride is a key policy of this council, which is why we reopened Story Road Park and Ride site. But we are very much aware that numbers are not as high as they were pre-COVID, and we hope they will increase. But residents rightly question why there are double-decker buses that aren't full on the route from time to time. So we've got an opportunity here to address that. And the resolution reduces the number of buses on the Story road site from 2 to 3 and replaces them with hopper buses. Personally, I don't like the use of the term hopper bus. I think it gives the wrong impression. But if you look at the picture there, you can see that they've got a pretty decent capacity, can take wheelchairs on, and there should be certainly enough room on those buses to deal with the passenger numbers that we expect. But we can monitor that, and if it turns out that people are queuing up and they're unable to get on the bus, we can go back to Stagecoach and try to get additional buses on the route. There will be, of course, some financial savings through this, which is good. That would enable us to put a bit of money back into the parking incentives pot as well. And we can look at, if I'm speaking as Alex Ricketts, we can look at some, some more incentives like in the year to increase park and ride usage on that. So looking at the actual resolution here, we are resolving that operational changes A, B and C as outlined in paragraph 2.3 of the report are implemented, but I will just read out what A, B and C are. So A was to reduce the number of buses serving the Sturry Road site from 3 to 2. B, change the type of buses serving the Sturry Road site, which is currently 1 double-decker and 2 single-deckers, to hopper buses. And C, replace the double-decker buses serving the New Dover Road and Windsheep sites with single-deckers. So I think this is a sensible and pragmatic move forward. We should still be able to make sure that people can get on a bus fairly quickly, get into the city, and when capacity needs to build up, we can be ready for that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So, have we got a seconder for that proposal? Thank you, Pip. We appreciate that. So that's proposed and seconded. We can open up. Richard, do you want to come back and put some meat on there as well?
Just a couple of things, if I may. One, sharp-eyed amongst you may have spotted in 2.3 an autocorrect that's changed A, B and C to D, E and F. It clearly shouldn't be D, E and F. The resolution says A, B and C, and that's what paragraph 2.3 should be reading. So that's the first point of correction. I thought I'd also respond to our public speaker who asked a very important point about Easter Sunday. I've checked the data for Easter Sunday, and you're correct that the usage has dropped off by about half. But it's still, at New Dover Road, it's still over 120 passengers. I think personally it's still worthwhile. We're not just aiming just for the commuter market, as you rightly say, shops are shut, but also tourists as well. So yeah, it would offer potentially a small saving to stop on Easter Sunday, but I think it's worthwhile. Christmas Day is the only day that it's closed currently, and I think that's the way we should stay. Just on the, obviously the overview committee, Councillor Soul has mentioned that debate. It was a good debate. The one concern that was expressed was the increased interval between buses from 10 to 15 minutes, that they couldn't decide, they couldn't make a recommendation to this committee. The officers, I think we feel on balance, it's worth that because of the financial saving that would offer. But one of the points I made at the overview committee is that we would continually monitor that. And if it transpired that actually people were getting deterred by the increased wait time, then we could reapproach Stagecoach to re-implement that bus. But I think the recommendation, I think it is a pragmatic solution at a time when usage at Park and Ride is increasing, but it's still quite low.
Thanks for that. Certainly was a point raised, wasn't it, and quite well debated in overview. So, and I had a chat with the chair of overview about that point to make sure I was absolutely clear. And I think you sum it up well. I think that's exactly in line with what his conversation with me was about. So, we have thought about that quite clearly. The only question is just to highlight the tape really. When do you reckon this will kick off? And that's
Stagecoach obviously aware, they've got the buses waiting to be liveried up. So I would hope it could happen sometime next month. So sometime in May.
Okay, so they'll definitely be in place, settled in by our busy summer. That'll be really useful. So that'll be handy, won't it? Any other comments, anyone at all on that one? Okay, I've got Chris.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on how the contract would be varied if need increased, so to speak. So obviously you've had a conversation about increasing frequency. That would be a timetabling issue. But if we needed to return back to the 3 buses, I assume that would be a contract variation. So is it prudent in negotiating the current contract to consider or look at what a price for a third one if we ever needed, and a process by which we could add that third one back in, rather than get to a process by which we revise down to 2, and then we find if supply has substantively increased, the argument is we don't have the resource or the contract has, is ridiculously expensive, so to speak. So my question is, if we needed to step the service back up again, how have we considered we would do it?
And it's a good point. So this would require a change to the contract terms anyway. So that would be a formal change. And you're absolutely right. If we ever wanted to go back, we couldn't just say we want to revert to the same terms. It would be a negotiation at that time. So I haven't got an answer for that, but all I can say is that the relationship we got with Stagecoach is very good. It's in their interests as well that the park and ride service runs as effectively as possible. They don't want people to be waiting around. It's no good for our reputation nor theirs. So it would be a negotiation at that time, but I'm confident it wouldn't be too dissimilar to the current terms. It may be that we don't get the same bus that obviously we previously had, and there would obviously be additional costs because they'd have to pull a bus from somewhere else, and again there's a cost of relivering up in our car. So that would be an obvious cost that would come to us. But I'm hopeful that if we needed to go back, it wouldn't be too dissimilar to that. Would be my baseline position. Would be let's negotiate from the same contract terms we had. Obviously, all these contract terms are uplifted annually anyway, so it shouldn't be too dissimilar.
Okay. Yeah, that's the point. But noting, obviously, Stagecoach would be aware of that option, won't they, and the concerns that we had. So I think that's reasonable. No reason why they shouldn't accept that, is there? Any other comments at all? Pip?
Yes, and apologies if it is in the report and or that I should have known this some time ago. So I'll ask the question and then listen and learn, hopefully. So can non-park and ride users who want to get into town use the park and ride buses? And if so, do they pay? And I know that that's come up because some residents like myself who've got the OAP bus pass, we're twirlies sometimes. And I'm not sure, and people have said, and those park and ride buses are going by and I couldn't, well, whatever. So I'd like to know what the position is. And turning it round the other way, can park and ride users who've parked and paid hop on a Stagecoach bus coming into town? And if so, is there any way of coordinating the timetables? Thank you.
So first of all, yes, foot passengers can pay to use park and ride buses, and we accept concessions, age concessions. We don't accept school bus passes, and that has been muted at certain times. And the feeling with that is that the mix between school children and the clients that we're trying to attract to our buses don't always mix in the peak hour. So we've resisted the school bus concession, but we do accept the age concession. Park and ride users can use Stagecoach buses, but only after 7 o'clock. So at the moment, the park and ride buses stop from St George's Lane at 7 o'clock or just after, and from that point onwards, if you want to get back to your car at any of the 3 sites, albeit the one to Wincheap has got quite a limited stagecoach service. You can show your ticket to a stagecoach driver and be dropped off at the nearest bus stop to Park and Ride. But we haven't got that reciprocal agreement during the day.
Thanks, Richard. So can I just check, is there any reason why they couldn't?
It's not a request I've ever heard. Our buses run 8 to 10 minute frequency.
Yes, but I suppose my point, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
Richard, my point
With
being
this
that
one.
with this reduction, if somebody just misses one at Sturry Road and therefore has a 20-minute
Yeah.
wait, and a stagecoach bus is coming along,
Well, it's a very good point and not one I had considered or raised with Stagecoach. I will do so.
thank you. It would just
Yeah.
be good, it might mitigate some of the concerns about, people might not use it, because they've got to wait maybe those extra few minutes. Thank you.
I think it's a really good point, actually, Pip, because the Herne Bay, 601 and all the Margate and Ramsgate buses and that all goes. I mean, I live literally on the route and I don't actually look at the time anymore because it's a bus every few minutes. So it's really worth it. So it could be worth it. Yeah, if they do it. Why not? I suppose they're going to get money, aren't they? One way or the other. So, okay, Connie.
Yeah, well, as somebody who has used a Park and Ride bus and was twirly, I was quite happy to pay, to be honest, because I just wanted to get into the town and move on. But I was just thinking about where the Park and Ride buses park. They don't park near where the bus stop is at Sturry Road. People would have to, it's quite a walk, isn't it? It's not an easy crossing, and probably, Pip, by the time they've, got from where they are or whatever, the Park and Ride bus would have turned up and they could have got on in anyway. But it's a good point, but I'm just thinking about the fact that, would I do it? And I think the answer is no, I wouldn't.
I think it does actually raise that question of whether we ought to be restoking the idea that you can go out in the evening, and certainly for Sturry Road and to a lesser degree, I suppose, New Dover Road, there is a pretty good service out of the town to the Park and Rides. If you're late in the evening, especially Sturry Road, I would have said actually, probably the one that's best served of the whole lot in the evening. So that might be something we actually take the opportunity at this point when we're launching this thing to actually make sure that the Sturry Road buses actually get a little bit of a boost as well. I think there's definitely a benefit there. So, and they're literally, the bus stops are almost, just on the same sort of area of the rank as what the Park and Rides are, sort of that sort of C and B end of it. So, yeah, so pretty good. Is that it? So I told you it'd be the star event, didn't I, the evening? Thank you for the Mr. Harrison for launching the our evenings the Park and Ride. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So, is there anything you wanted to add at all, Richard? Are you happy with that? So what we need to resolve this, don't we?
Yeah, I've just changed that to D, E, and F. And
Okay.
I don't think we had a seconder.
Okay, we didn't have a seconder, or did we miss it? Could I have somebody?
did.
Oh, we did. Was it? That's okay. That's absolutely fine. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to reread the resolution out because of the typo and because we got to agree what's written tonight. So to resolve that the operational changes D, E, and F, as outlined in paragraph 2.3 of the report, are implemented. So if we're happy with that, that's what we're going to resolve. That's what we're going to vote for. So over to all of you.
And that's carried unanimously, Chair.
Okay. Right, thanks for that, all of you. Item 13, the date for your diary, that's the 16th of June, 2025 is our next Cabinet meeting. There are no other urgent business, I don't think there's no, not at all. Thank you for that. There's nothing under this section which is the exclusion of press and public. So we don't need to do 15 stroke part C of this agenda, do we at all? Which only remains for me to close the meeting at 2019. Thank you all very much this evening. Thank you for all of you for coming out. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.